Hi guys, welcome to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today I have Bret Contreras back on the show after a 4-year hiatus. Can you believe it? I can't. And I'm really glad I brought Bret back on because it was a fantastic discussion. We talk about his exercise efficiency guide and kind of understanding how to diagnose exercises and their efficacy for your goals. And it was a really, really great discussion. We talk a bit about social media as well and some of the negative impacts that could be having on scientists in general. I think you'll really enjoy this. And as always, guys, if you do enjoy the podcast, please do leave us a 5-star rating over on Spotify or wherever you're listening it. If you can give us a review, please leave us a nice one. We appreciate it. But without further ado, we'll get into the show. Cheers, guys. Hi guys, welcome to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today I have Bret Contreras back on the show. I can't believe how fast time passes. I don't know if this will sound like a long time to you, Bret, but I look back and I was like, how has it been 4 years, almost 4 years since Bret came on? That was episode 112, but does it feel like 4 years to you, Bret? I don't know.
It was like 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, I can't even believe it. So back then we were talking about kind of hypertrophy and what drives hypertrophy, and obviously fantastic discussion. I feel bad almost that it's been 4 years since I've brought back Bret, because that was a fantastic discussion and Bret has a lot to share. And I just recently came across some of content that kind of inspired me to want to bring Bret on, because it's something that, I mean, Bret is very passionate about what he does. I'm sure the audience is very aware who Bret is. And this is something I'm very passionate about as well. And I think it's something that is a bit of a, I guess, everything in the fitness industry. And I'm sure you know this, Bret, like it swings and roundabouts, like things come in and they go. And this is something that's in at the moment in terms of exercise selection and biomechanics and that sort of thing. Before we dive into that, though, I know I like doing this with kind of people that come on who, obviously you're an exercise scientist, but also you lift. So I like to just kind of get an update on kind of how is that going with you. And I don't know, any updates over the last 4 years, any big kind of life changes for you, Bret, that is worth the listeners knowing about?
Well, you know, I moved from the biggest thing. I moved from San Diego to Vegas, and I still have my gym in San Diego, but it's been very hard to keep my squad at their top strength with me not there. You know, they did good for a while. It was, you know, I'll get 20 text messages during this call, during this podcast. I'm always looking over their videos, telling them what to do. I still write all their programs. It's just different with me not there to motivate. And it's just not as fun. When I'm there, we have big groups and it's so much fun training together. So I'm trying to get a gym here in Vegas, but it's actually been very surprisingly hard to find a gym to lease, like a nice space near me. Well, that's not like a 25-minute drive or something, you know, but I do still train a ton of people here in Vegas. I still work with so many people, and I don't have to. I don't need the money. I do it because I will never stop practicing. It's practice. It's free practice. It's skill work. That's what keeps you sharp. I want to be the world's glute expert, and that requires me to lift. That requires me to train people. That requires me to read research and conduct experiments and conduct research. I have been doing good at that lately, but yeah, it's a vital component. You stop training people, you go rusty. You start speaking esoterically and theoretically, and you're not grounded in the practical, which is interesting. What I'm seeing a lot of now, you can tell all these people coming out with these bold claims. They don't train people. It's obvious to those who have a bunch of clients. You'll never catch us saying these things. It's like a dead ringer. When I see these things, I'm like, another person that doesn't train anyone.
Yeah, I guess this is something that I get the bros always pick at, like the scientific papers about, like, oh, you like guys don't lift, and so it's great. I mean, a lot of the people I talk to in an interview on here, like yourself, Brad Schoenfeld, Mike Israetel, like Eric Helms, these individuals, like all who are well within the scientific literature and kind of pay attention to that, but also in their heart also like bros, and they just want to get jacked and help people get jacked. So I think it's that kind of, that's what evidence-based practice is, in terms of kind of meshing the two together and applying your experience as well. So yeah, it's, I guess for you, when you see kind of people making bold claims and black and white statements about things that maybe for you, if like in your experience have just worked tremendously well, it's like that hurts. It's like, and they have all these kind of, I guess, facts or what have you about however they're trying to present it, and your real life experience is telling you something different, and that can be quite challenging. And yeah, I can see why, for someone as passionate as you are about this, it can be something that you obviously then came out and it inspired you to create this really cool efficiency guide.
Yeah, so I actually spent a long time on the exercise efficiency guide, and you can take that PDF and give it away on your site or whatever, embed it in there, because I want people to see it. My hope is that people can start being their own expert instead of relying on other people. I don't know, it's so weird for me. Like, Steven, did you ever need someone to tell you if an exercise is good? Like,
No.
when I was 18, I knew, I could tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
you feel it.
yeah, oh, this is a good exercise. It's so bizarre to me. I mean, I could go on Instagram right now and say, pick any exercise, just pick one right now.
We're going to do sissy squat.
Okay. The sissy squat is the worst exercise known to man. I could say that. It's so jarring on the knee joints. What a terrible exercise. Whoever thought of this is, or I could go the opposite direction. The sissy squat is the most underrated exercise. It's body weight. You can do it from home. The people think it causes knee pain. It's actually the opposite. We have all these people now who are afraid for their knees to go over their toes, and they need to be doing sissy squats to strengthen their quadriceps and patella tendons. And, you do these, you strengthen your knees. They're not only are you going to get quad and rectus femoris strengthening, you're going to get, the benefits of blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the point is I could go either way and I'd get this huge reception.
Yeah.
And the problem is it's this reward on social media for black and white, for bold statements, for, and especially like there's not, I employ every exercise in my gym, and I don't have that many injuries. We have to train around things, but if you have people training hard, push it close to failure, you have stuff happen from time to time, but I don't have a lot of debilitating injuries and things like that. And we're doing all these exercises that all these people have always said are dangerous. And I'm just so sick of it. I've been dealing with it for 20 years. The other thing is these people, when social media has created this problem, because it not only are those posts rewarded, but you also see the people who create these hysterias, they will block and delete everyone, and then they limit their comments. And so I've had researchers come to me, they're like, Bret, I don't get it. I went on this guy's page, Bret, you've referenced my studies. I published about the glute medius, and you referenced my studies. I'm a big fan of your work, but I went on this guy's page and I tried to correct him very politely, and he deleted my comments. So I DM'd him. I said, hey, what? And then the guy cussed me out and then blocked me. And it's like, I'm hearing that all the time. It's like, why are they trying to, you'll never prevail. Science will always win over time. You can't bully people you can't trick people. You can trick them for a little bit, but only for so long. And what I think is that there's a lot of jealousy in our industry. And you see some guy that's got, more followers than you, and it's very, you want to go after that guy. It's human nature. I've been dealing with that for a very long time. Now there's guys passing me, and I recognize, like, okay, I get irritated at this post, but if that guy had 50,000 followers, I wouldn't be irritated. It's because he has 2.1 million followers that I'm like, no, it irritates me because it's going out to the masses. So it's human nature. But some of these things, it's like some of these guys, for example, have made a career out of bashing my work. And I have, in my opinion, the most effective glute training system known to man. They've completely, that's all they do. They've made a whole, they never taught people, like, it's just bash, bash, bash. And then they act surprised that I'm offended when you bashed all my exercises or said I'm doing them wrong. And the most annoying thing is when they try to change the terminology. Like, we've been doing this for hip thrusts have been around since 2009, barbell hip thrusts. That's when I first wrote about them for T Nation. So it's been, yeah, it's been 15
A long time, yeah.
years since I invented them. Well, going on 16, but since 2009, that's been what, 13 years since they've been popular online. And we had an established name and like naming system, nomenclature, terminology, whatever you call it. And it was like the barbell glute bridge was from the floor, the barbell hip thrust was from a bench. If you did a partial, it was called a pulse. And so you see these guys who weren't around at that time. They never saw the evolution. I mean, we had all these bloggers back then. We had so many blogs, so many articles on T Nation, so many peer-reviewed studies that use this literature. And then they come around and they try and change the naming system. And the justification is so silly for it. Anyway, these people are not good for the field. They would be good for the field if they didn't block and delete and limit comments, and they were open to criticism. They weren't bullies about it, but they have been bullies. And I got into lifting weights because I don't like bullies. I can't stand them. I mean, that's why I started lifting.
Yeah,
Then
amazing.
I wanted females to like me, and I had such a terrible physique. But I really don't like the bullying. It's such a turnoff to me. And I've kind of stayed out of it. I've stayed out of this because I don't like, there's this saying, never wrestle with a pig because you both end up dirty and the pig likes it. So I've stayed out of it, but I realize the time has come where I post my exercise and people are like, LOL, that doesn't work the glutes, that works the piriformis. And I'm going, everyone knows that this doesn't work the piriformis, it works the glutes. And you got this whole subset of people, their followers, that are like, that works the piriformis. And you're all too stupid to know the difference. And you can tell it's not. We can feel which muscles are working. We're not that stupid. We know it's working the glutes. You can feel your glutes. You can palpate it. You can palpate your glutes. And they're trying to bully people into thinking an exercise works the piriformis when it works the gluteus maximus. You can do that with your people, but people have common sense. That strategy is only going to last so long. And, that's a specific exercise we could talk about, but I'm tired of it. I'm tired of anyone can see through it from the outside, but it's those people can't see what they're doing. They can't see that they're bashing exercise. They're bashing people. They're bashing, some of these people think they're the smartest dudes in the world, that they know more about glutes than me. They know more about hypertrophy than Brad Schoenfeld. They know more about, nutrition than Alan Aragon. And they need to be put in their place, in my opinion.
Something that comes to mind is Dunning-Kruger when you mention that, in terms of like they're at that point and they're just at the prefaces before they realize kind of how much they don't know. If maybe they had a conversation with like each of you one-on-one, it's like, oh, and they don't have like the ability to get into that depth of knowledge of, and it's the experience as well that you have.
Well, that's a huge part of it. This Dunning-Kruger effect is rampant out there, and they don't know what they don't know. And here's the problem. Like, I would love to debate some of these people, but like one of them in particular, I've heard him on a debate and he doesn't shut up. He just bullies and keeps talking and talking and talking. And it's like, no, we need to have a system. Like, when you debate someone in a formal setting, you have limits. You can't just keep talking and talking. You can't bully the person. You have like a 1 minute time limit, and then you have to wait and you have to be respectful. And that's what I wish we had. I would love to debate some of these people in a formal setting and have rules, and have a moderator that's like, listen, you can't, hey, your time is up, you're done. And if you can't stick to the rules, that's really pathetic. You're not being professional, you're not being respectful, because I've seen some of these debates that don't go well, and it's like, well, the bigger bully wins. But I'm 6'4", 250 pounds. I'm not afraid of anyone, and I can't anyone. And I can talk louder than anyone, and I can. But who wants to be involved in that?
Yeah.
If it comes down to that, it just makes you both look unprofessional and unacademic, you know?
Yeah. I've had a number of, I wouldn't even call them debates on this channel, but a number of just like conversations almost. And I mean, most people I bring on, like yourself, Bret, are just, they're able to have that kind of discourse generally. And thankfully, because I'm not very probably good at butting in and making people like stick to a certain time limit, but I can definitely see how that could be really challenging and off-putting.
You could take myself and Brad Schoenfeld, the guys you mentioned, you know, Eric Helms, Mike Israetel, whoever else in the industry is, you know, and we could have a fun, it would be fun listening to the debate because we're not so, what we ultimately want is the truth. So it would be fun and funny to listen to because we'd we kind of trust each other to know that this guy's true compass is you know
Yeah.
is headed towards the truth. They really want the truth. They're not trying to fool anyone, and they would all change their mind given enough evidence. Given
Yeah.
sufficient evidence, they would all change their mind, and they'd even make a post about it. Hey, I was wrong. Here's the truth. That's what the old evidence-based crew, we were all like that, and we still are
Yeah.
like that. And these new people coming up, they're not like that. They're not the same. They're not one of us, and they will never be one of us until they actually care about science above their own pseudoscience. And these new pseudoscientists kind of, oh, I like EMG I like EMG when it proves my point, but EMG is worthless when it doesn't, when it goes against my bias. You know, that I use this, but then when it doesn't, and it's like there's no consistency, and that's why I created that guide.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good point. And yeah, one of the things that came to mind is kind of like censorship. It's like I didn't even really think about the fact that people do block people, hide comments, whatever it might be, restrict them, because I guess if, for example, like with the researchers or for you, they might be looking towards you guys to comment, and they're like, oh, they're not commenting. There must be the fact they have nothing to say. This is all real.
It's exactly true. So you read the comments, and it's all right. If I made a post, you know, Mike Israetel is such a mean person. He's such a bully, and I hate him. And then 50 people start. I don't think many people dislike Mike, so it'd be hard. But you know, 200 people comment, and 150 of them are like, "What? Mike Israetel is the greatest guy ever. I love the guy. He's done these wonderful things for me." Like Mike is very generous. He's hilarious. Everyone likes him. But there might be, say there's 15 people who just are haters and they just don't like him. And I leave those 15 comments up and delete all the whatever 185 that supported him. And then you came by and you read this, you'd be like, whoa, he is a bad guy. I don't think this Mike's any good anymore. You can manipulate people's opinions.
Yeah, it's really scary, actually, when you think about that. And then I think it's a case of also, like, with these, I guess, pseudoscientists or people coming up and they're, I guess, trying to stake a claim and they're trying to be different. And that's also, like you said, kind of when you're black and white, unfortunately, that appeals to people. So they're kind of like, you can't eat these foods. And if you don't eat these foods, for example, like you'll lose weight or whatever. And that appeals to the just general public. So when you make a black and white statement, like, this is a bad exercise, this is a good exercise, these are the ones you should be doing, don't do these, people are like, oh, this is like clarity. Whereas actually it's kind of, I know you said this as a trainer, like you want variations, you want to kind of, it's like foods, you want to give people options. And when you restrict them, like that's just an unhealthy and unnecessary approach to things. And it's not educating, actually, it's holding people back.
Well, that's what frustrates me. It's like the problem is people aren't exercising. Let's not get them to be afraid of exercises. And why are you saying something's dangerous when it's not? You know what the most dangerous exercises are by far? Squats, deadlifts, and bench press. So far more dangerous than any other exercise. I had a poll once, and I said, I think I got like 12,000 responders to this on SurveyMonkey, right? And it was like, how many times have you injured yourself with this exercise, this exercise, this, and a whole list of exercises. Guess what the top three, which blew every other exercise away, were? Squats, deadlifts, and bench press. Think about yourself. Have you ever hurt yourself doing a row? Have you ever hurt yourself doing a hip thrust?
No.
Yeah, you hurt yourself doing a deadlift before, right? So it's so stupid that we're sitting here saying, "Oh, don't do this. Don't this exercise is going to trash your joints." But then we're telling people to deadlift. And I love deadlifts. I love every exercise, but people die with bench press. They drop the bar on their chest. There have been people who've died from that. Hell, when you go to rack, you better have those safety pins in place. What happens if you don't get it and you fail? You come down, you better roll the bar this way. You roll it this way. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So why it's like, if they're warning people, why aren't you you're like, yelling about, you're yelling about these little things in here when there's these big elephant in the room that you're ignoring or something. You know what I mean? So that's what's weird to me. If you're really concerned about, are you really concerned about people's safety? Then you should really warn people about squats and like teach them how to, if you're really, that's what your biggest concern is, people not getting injured or dying in the gym, teach them how to fail in a squat. Teach them how to set up the pins properly in a squat, in a bench press, and then teach them, some of the dangers with deadlifting. And then, yes, you can talk about, military press and bent over rows, but some of these other exercises like kickbacks. Yes, if you overarch, they can cause you some low back pain, but I'm not that worried about kickback form. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just altering their form a little bit and then they're fine. But I'm not saying don't warn people about like pain and injury and stuff. Just be consistent. If the only posts you've made are picking out my 3 favorite exercises, then you probably have a hidden agenda. You know what I mean?
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
Yeah, it's like you said, and it's that case of it. If you kind of bash these exercises that maybe a lot of people enjoy, it's like, oh, you're probably not going to get the attention you want. Whereas if you pick at someone and you find, maybe you think you found like a hole in an exercise that like someone with your size of following, like suddenly they kind of get attention, and maybe that spirals into, they keep going down this route of like, oh, this is going to get me more and more attention. But it's like you mentioned at the start, I hope at least they either will need to change their way into becoming less dichotomous and less black and white spoken and like the shades of gray to all of these things and moving down that route, or they're just going to, there'd be a flash in the pan because like the saying goes, you can only sell shit once. Like they're essentially, that's what they're doing. They're not going to be able to kind of sustain in the industry, especially with people like yourself.
Well, that's why I created that guide, hoping people would read it. Like, look, there's 3 types of clues, that we rely on in sports science and strength training. Like, if you and I are having a discussion, say we talk every day, and I'm like, dude, how was your workout? Then we'll talk about, the common sense clues. We will be like, dude, you should, I start doing, this is a true story. I start doing the V-bar tricep extensions. Instead of having it out in front of me, I lean over it and I try to have my elbows out a little bit. And then when I come down, I squeeze that lockout for 1 full second. Then I come back up and I feel it so much more. And my triceps are just annihilated when I do it that way. And I'm actually growing some tricep muscle. I never had any of this. Like I'm growing some at age 45. It's kind of cool. But that's just based on feel. And that's what we talk about. Or, dude, I got a crazy pump, or I got I felt the burn so much, or God, these made me really sore. Those are the things we tend to talk about, and they're valid. Some people are out there saying sensation is worthless. I just think that's the silliest comment I've ever heard in all of my years as a lifter, because when I grew up reading about bodybuilding, all the bodybuilders, it's all they would ever say. I never had nice pecs until I learned how to use my pecs during a bench press. I had to learn how to feel them pushing the weight up. That's all sensation based. You have to listen to your own brain, that's connected to the muscles. You have to pay attention to that. If you stop paying attention to sensations, that's the single most egregious comment I've ever heard. Sensation is meaningless. Sensation is worthless. Someone actually says that out there. There are people who actually say that out there. So you're going against every bodybuilder who said the mind-muscle connection is important. And Brad Schoenfeld published a paper, I was on it, showing evidence of the mind-muscle connection. So you're saying that you shouldn't pay attention to what you feel? Come on, it's all important. These common sense clues are important. All right, but the problem with them is that they lack numerical data. If you say, I feel this exercise and I feel this exercise, how can we compare them? How can we compare how they're, how can we say how can we make a prediction as to which one's more effective? Well, that's where the kind of the numerical clues come into place. And these are tools that sports scientists use, things like EMG. Some people bash EMG. I freaking love EMG. And that's because I've done so many hundreds of hours. You put an electrode on your bicep and you take the 10s and you do a curl. Then you take the 15s, then you take the 20s, and you just go up by 5 pounds and you watch the waveform. It's like they're just on top of each other. Like the heavier you go, there's how could that be a bad thing? Now, my colleague Andrew Vygotsky likes to point out the pitfalls of them, but the problem is there's a paper published by DeLuca back in the day. He measured tension and he measured activation. And I mean, it's not a straight line. It's not a perfect linear correlation, but it's pretty close, and it's a hell of a lot better than just taking some guru's word for it. So I like EMG, especially if you tweak your form a little bit, but use the same range of motion, or if you're comparing exercises with similar ROM or comparing variations. Not if you're comparing different loads, though. Then it's not as valuable. And if you're comparing different exercises that have vastly different ranges of motion, things like that. But it is very useful. It's a useful clue. It's one of my favorites, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. And here's the problem. Right now, EMG went way this way, and then it went way this way. Now it's being bashed. The truth is in the middle. You want it in the middle. You don't want it too far this way or this way. Right now, EMG is being bashed. All right, take anything on this whole list on the exercise efficiency guide. Take the common sense clues. All right, they all have weaknesses and pitfalls to them. Take everything on the numerical clues, even take the longitudinal clues. All right, someone publishes a paper. Okay, well, I'll get to that in a minute. But take the numerical clues, the sports science tools that we use, right? We use functional MRI. Do you think functional MRI is perfectly correlated? Probably not. It's not. Because it measures, shifts in the fluid shifts. Fluid shifts is not going to be it's like EMG. But we like it, but it's not on the chopping block right now because it's not as popular. Take ultrasound. Cool. You can use it to measure muscle thickness. You can use it to measure shear wave elastography, which is kind of like a measurement of stiffness. Is muscle thickness after a workout that shows you the pump? There's one study that shows that the pump was correlated with subsequent muscle hypertrophy, like the exercise that gave you the better pump did in fact, or an exercise that gave you a good pump grew your muscles over the long term. But is it perfect? Is it perfectly correlated? And there's more factors that go into getting the pump. The pump changes depending on I was in Mexico City last week. I got the greatest pump of my entire life. I posted a video of it. So I went home and, being the researcher I am, I wanted to know why. Well, there are 3 reasons that I can think of. And I looked them all up. One is that I was drinking the hospital. I was next door to a hospital. I was at a hotel and they had a diner there. And I went to the diner, had all these beetroot juice drinks and they were pretty tasty. I've never had beetroot juice drinks, but I was drinking 2 or 3 of these a day and they're very high in nitrates, right? Nitrates lead to nitrites, which lead to nitric oxide, and that can give you a better pump. It's good for, the pump. It's good for just the endothelial system in general. It's good for erections. Like nitric oxide is important. All right. Now, the second reason is I was drinking a lot of Gatorades because they don't have diet. They don't have, in Mexico, they don't have nearly as many Gatorade Zeros or Powerade Zeros. People like their sugar there. What they think, what's the point, So I was drinking all these Gatorades. I was carved up. I had lots of electrolytes and I was carved up. And I think that carb up could have explained it. But the biggest factor, this is something I didn't know, Mexico City is 7,700 feet up. It's a mile and a half high. So I thought maybe it's the elevation because I was breathing like crazy. Well, it was like the fourth day that I noticed this pump. And I found a study that talked about it. The people of Nepal, of Tibet, the people of Tibet have the highest nitric oxide levels in their body, sometimes like 3 to 5 times, depending on the tissue, 3 times higher than ordinary people. Their levels are through the roof, and it's because they've been, there's a debate whether it's a genetic predisposition or if it's pure acclimation, but there's another study putting people at, say, 5,000 feet up of elevation, and then they met the first couple days they dip down, but then they supercompensate and your nitric oxide levels go way up. So my guess is that it was just a combination of these 3 factors that led to the greatest pump ever. I went off on a tangent, but the point is, any tool that you're using, if you happen to do what I did, then I'd be left with an unfair advantage when I went and did this exercise. Or if I went and got measured via MRI or something in a training study, if I happened to take creatine, tons of carbs, and then I drink, I'm thirsty, water, it all gets registered as, lean body mass. So it looks like I gain muscle. So there's pitfalls with every single thing. You name it, there's problems with it. That's why I said every one of these clues is a piece of the puzzle. It's all a piece of the puzzle. We need many pieces of the puzzle. And then you conducted training studies. That's what would be ideal. How cool would it be if we had, 200 studies on the squat, 200 studies on the hip thrust, 200 studies on cable kickbacks, 200 studies on back extensions, 200 studies on incline press, and every which way you can do it. We're looking at doing them with, with dumbbells, with barbells, with Smith machine, at a 30-degree incline, at a 45-degree incline, at a 60-degree incline, with different loads and volumes and frequencies, with different populations. And you would then get a good picture of how effective an exercise is. And to the point where you could write a review paper that said, you looking at the 100 studies on step ups, here's what we've learned. Here's what we're pretty confident about. Here's where we need more research on. But how cool would that be? The problem is we will never have 200 longitudinal studies, maybe with like squats and like push-ups and, but not all the different variations, not all the different exercises. It just won't happen. Sports science isn't funded like other fields are, like obesity and cancer research.
Sure.
You just don't see, it's so nice when you research these other fields that are just, for example, when I was researching beets, there are so many studies, because that's important for health.
Yeah.
You don't see that when you're researching, hip thrusts. There's probably 30 studies maybe, but you don't have a lot of longitudinal studies. We will always have way more acute studies than longitudinal studies. It's just the way it is. It'll always be that way because, scientists need to publish. And why would you just only publish, if you just publish training studies, that takes your whole semester up. Your semester lasts 16 weeks. So you got to get right on the ball say you do a 12-week training study, you got to start right away and then analyze it and try to write it up before the students leave, So, and you're going to have dropouts. It's very frustrating. It's so time consuming. It's costly. It's exhausting. You got to have several coaches there watching over everyone in the training regimen. Whereas the more acute studies, like the mechanistic studies, like an EMG study, that can just be done, in a weekend or two. And then you get the data and then you publish it. So we're always going to have way more numerical clues. We'll always have way more common sense clues than anything, because everyone works out and can feel. Yeah. We can all feel sensations, right? So that'll always be the number one thing people talk about. The next thing is going to be the numerical stuff, because we're going to have more studies looking at that than longitudinal studies. But in a perfect world, we'd have so many training studies on different populations that we'd be able to say, look, if you're trying to maximize glute growth, then here's exactly how you should go about it. But we're not going to have that anytime soon. So the next best thing is to go down the line. We've got a couple of longitudinal studies. We've got, a dozen numerical clues, and we have common sense. We have biomechanics. We have functional anatomy. We have, we can analyze things this way, and we got to use all of them. You don't just cherry pick which ones you happen to like and ignore the ones you don't. You use all of the clues together to form your opinion of an exercise's effectiveness.
Yeah, I think that's where evidence. Sorry, I'm gonna pick up the dog. She's like, now's the time you have to walk me, and she's just whining there. So I'm like, I'll just pick her up and she'll shut up. And she's probably distracting in the background. But I think that was really, really well said, Bret, because the thing that I liked how you described it was like, these are all pieces of the puzzle. And it's just like you mentioned in terms of like cherry picking, like, oh, EMG works for my bias here, but it doesn't here. So I'm just going to ignore this one and I'm going to talk about it here. And that isn't what evidence-based practice is. It's about looking at the totality of the evidence. So I really like that you had these kind of three sections of like common sense clues, numerical clues, longitudinal clues as well. And I think, and it really, I struggle with the idea that sensation has nothing, because obviously I've been training for over a decade myself, and you even see studies where people can be intentional with their technique or form and they can activate muscles differently. And I certainly can do it where, I don't know, if I think about trying to kind of use a certain muscle in an exercise, like you can feel the sensation. And I've no doubt that also has kind of real world impacts as well. I struggle to think that could mean nothing. And when someone has a statement like that, it makes it hard to kind of go along with, like, there could be some good things also that person is then talking about that could be really helpful, but it makes it hard when and they might say sensation in this context is not helpful, but in this, like, it's more helpful. But to just say like you said, or some people saying that like sensation is meaningless. I don't know. It's like the people that might say, I don't know, soreness is meaningless. It's like, it's meaningless. Like, I'm just really.
It's and that's what I wish people. So the thing is, in a normal world, if I made a statement right now and went on my Instagram and said, sensation is worthless. What you feel is worthless. It means nothing. What you feel while you're working out means nothing. And I did not moderate the comments. I mean, I would have 1,500 comments, and like 80% of it would be like, hey, Bret, normally I'm a big fan, but couldn't disagree with you more here. Are you telling me blah, blah, can you clarify this? Are you telling me that when I'm whatever, it would just be bashed? But again, if I just deleted every one of those comments and then blocked the people who were rude, which I have no problem blocking rude people. I have a problem when you block someone who has like if someone calls you a name, block them. But if someone's like, hey, I totally disagree here. I thought blah, blah, blah. Are you saying this? Like, and they're just asking hey, not trying to be rude, but, especially if it's like, Bret, I conducted a study on this. I'm a researcher.
Yeah.
I published a study on this showing the opposite. I think you're wrong here. Can you care to elaborate? And then you just delete their comment and block it, and then limit the comment so no one else can comment. It's you're artificially trying to create an illusion. You're not painting the whole picture here. And it's like what you said. I think that would be very dangerous to not pay attention to sensation. First of all, when I measured EMG with people, they'd say, "Hey, Bret, I don't like when I go narrow with hip thrust, I don't feel it much. But if I go a little bit wider, I feel it more, or vice versa." I had one client that she touches her toes together. She takes a narrow stance and touches her toes, but she walks very pigeon-footed,
Sure.
and everything she likes narrow stance. So with the masses, that narrow stance gets you the least glute activation with data that I have with 13 trained clients. The narrow stance, especially if you turn her feet in like that, that's a very awkward. But with her, it got so much higher glute activation than all the others. And I was like, man, I don't believe this. This is crazy. And then she did wide and it got so much less. So I palpated. You could touch her glutes and you could feel such a big difference when she went narrow. And she was right. And then I started realizing through 13 years of EMG experiments that people are right. They know their bodies well. When they say, "Bret, I feel it more in the pecs when I do this. Bret, I feel it more in the delts if I know you're supposed to do this, but I feel it more in the delts when I do this instead." They're always right. They're always right. And so you should tell people, when I train people, especially with cable standing hip abductions, every one of my squad do them differently. So it's like, I have the way I teach it. And then I say, but here are some different ways. Some girls have the leg in front, the working leg out in front. Some girls step over and have the working leg in back. Some girls lean a little bit. Some girls turn the toe out. And it's like, it doesn't, what matters is how you feel. I want you to put your hand right here on the glute medius and see how you feel it the most. That's the way I want you to do it. Some girls turn this way, turn that way. And that's what my goal is, to try to help them feel their optimal way of doing things. And that's another thing, when people start saying there's one way to do things, that's a dead ringer. If you hear someone say there's one way to do things, they don't train people, because no one who trains people, you'll never hear them say that. If you have, 50 clients like I do, you can go down this. They say everyone should be taking a narrow stance and squatting deep. You go, okay, that would work fine for Kiana, but Masa would destroy herself if she tried that. You know what I mean? Everyone should go wide and turn their feet out. Okay, so-and-so, whenever I have them do sumo stuff, they hurt their hips. That's not good for their hips. Everyone should go below parallel. Everyone should go here. No, everyone's different. Our skeletal anatomy is very different. Our, attachment points, all those things. You can go on and on and on. Your sockets are totally different shape, and depth. And we need to teach people how to figure out their optimal variations and their optimal form and technique that maximize their progress, and not just maximize their muscle activation, but that minimize their chance of injury, so that they can keep doing it for weeks and months and years to come.
Yeah, I think, again, really well said. I saw, sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just remembered I said dangerous earlier, and I didn't, that part didn't address the danger element. The danger element is if you didn't pay attention to sensation, the sensation didn't matter. Think about every time you've been injured. Every time I've been injured, my body was trying to tell me, and I was too stupid to pay attention to it. And I've gotten good at it finally. At age 45, I'm finally good at paying attention to my body. So it's like, my low back doesn't feel, I wanted to hit, I've deadlifted 650. I've hit 605 for 5. I still want to get stronger, but some days if I go to warm up and 545 feels heavy, or I feel my low back, I'm done for the day. I'm done. I don't try to pull anything big. I stop. This happens all the time. I just walk away from it because I'm not risking. I can deadlift in 2 days. I'll do some stuff right now, some single leg work or some back extension. I'll do something that'll help me, tide me over until I'm feeling better.
Yeah.
And every time I ever hurt myself back in the day, I was like, afterwards, I'd be like, man, I should have paid attention. My low back wasn't feeling good, or my hips weren't, or my whatever. My knees were telling me on set one of those hack squats, you should be done. And I did 3 sets. If I would have stopped at 1 set, I'd be okay. And now my knees are going to be sore for 10 days. And it's going to ruin the whole rest of my week of training. So yeah, you should pay attention. You absolutely should pay attention. I tell my clients that. Tell me whatever you're feeling. I want to know, and what you don't feel like it's stupid. Whatever you're telling me is important. You need to feel comfortable telling me so that I can give you the best advice as your coach.
Yeah, I think that, again, very well said. I even think of, like, recently I just had like a shoulder tweak, and I was just like, oh, if I just like ducked a little bit more, tuck my elbow a bit more, oh, now it's pain free, and I can just like do that one thing. But I thought we were past the whole, I think there was a time where people were like, oh, you must squat like this, and then people learned that, like you said, like our hips don't all look the same. Some people can't sit arse to grass, they can't squat like some of the elite Olympic lifters, whereas other people, they have to do it differently. And I think particularly, at least what I've seen with some people in the field with like the biomechanics, the functional anatomy, it's like if you're not doing, like, it's like minutiae little differences between people where I'm like, well, they could be that little bit different where it feels that much better to them. It's like, no, sensation doesn't matter. You must perform it like this or it's wrong. It's kind of like, again, we're back to where we were.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. So remember, how old are you, Stephen?
I am basically 32.
32? See, I'm 45. So you might have come into this you may, basically when West Side started becoming really, really popular, like T-Nation started really, all these guys who were West Side, or like influenced by West Side, like Dave Tate and Joe DeFranco, and even a lot of powerlifter types were writing for T-Nation, and it was like, basically we should all be squatting wide, you're stronger that way. You'll move more weights and sit back. And we were raw lifters trying to imitate the geared powerlifters, like they're wearing briefs and a squat suit, sitting back as far as they can. And then we're doing that too, which was silly of us. But anyway, that's when the raw movement became way more popular. We stopped squatting so wide, and we started trying to use your quads more. And it brought more normality, or whatever the word is, to the field. But back then I'm trying to get my clients to squat wide. I remember my poor buddy Rob, he was my best friend and lifting partner for like 10 years, but he was always my guinea pig. And I'm having him squat wide, and he always, oh, this doesn't feel right. And I'm like, you just need to get used to it. I told him that so many times. You just need to get used to it. Trust me, you will get stronger. And then I heard a podcast with this Shirley Sarman. She's a physical therapist, and maybe it was a podcast or she wrote it somewhere. Maybe it was just a written interview, but she basically said, you got all these idiot trainers trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
Everyone's hips are different. The squat style needs to suit the person's hip anatomy. Some people's hips are not meant to go wide. Some people shouldn't go very narrow. You have to, and I remember going, oh my God, Rob, I screwed this guy over for years. So it's the way we learn, that was in my mid 20s, this is 20 years ago. But that's I've made a lot of mistakes as a trainer over the years, but what matters is that you continue to evolve and continue to learn and continue to question yourself.
Yeah. No, I can remember trying when I was getting into powerlifting. I tried the wide stance, and I was like, it's probably similar to your friend. Like, my hips are just like, oh man, it just feels all kind of wrong, and I can't produce any force or power at this point either. And so
it's funny because I walk with my feet out, and I walk like a caveman. Everyone makes fun of the way I walk, but I love sumo stance squats.
Yeah,
it feels like I'm cheating. In fact, I barely do them because I can sit and then just have vertical shins and sit way back. I even let my hips shoot up a little bit. Good morning, this wide stance sumo squat. It doesn't even look like a squat, but I'm so much stronger that way. It's like, it's crazy. So, but it doesn't work my quads much, I feel like I'm kind of doing like a hip thrust and cheating, but yeah, my body loves frog pumps where my knees are out. My body
Sure.
loves external rotation. My hips love external rotation. They love abduction, whereas some people do not. So you got to modify not only the exercise selection, but the exercise technique and what they do. And then but that's the art of that's the art of personal training. And that's where I wish I saw more of. It's so many of these guys out there right now, I think they're insecure. They need to feel like, I discovered this, I came up with this. And so they're trying to figure out the optimal way. The hip thrust should be done this way. This is the way to hip thrust. It's like, no, my girls all hip thrust very differently. You know, I teach them the hinge. I teach them the scoop. I like them, but a lot of them have a hybrid, kind of hingy and scoopy. And some of them, when they do this variation, they like to hinge. When they do this variation, they like to scoop. When you single leg, you usually hinge. Like there's a lot of different ways. And think about squats. We squat uniquely. It's good to squat many different ways. It's good to be versatile. And so you should never say, here's the way. You could say, here's the way I teach the squat. Then from there, let's figure out how to make it work with this person. And it rarely ends up looking the exact way I teach them. And then, if you saw my 50 clients and we showed all the ways they lift, you'd be like, wow, the way they squat, the way they deadlift, the way they hip thrust, the way they kick back, the way they bench, the way they military press, the way they do chin-ups is very different,
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service that will take your physique and knowledge to the next level. If you're interested, check the description and sign up.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the principles, like that's what we kind of want to learn, like the basic, okay, this is how the squat should generally be done. You don't come up onto your toes and like you squat down to like parallel, or if you can come deeper, great. It's like the general principles. And then it was funny, you were saying about like, when I get form videos, I work with people online, but it's a case of they send it across and like it can look great to me, but I'm always like, but how did it feel to you? Like, that's generally what I end up asking. I'm like, again,
Same.
If sensation meant nothing, it's kind of like, well, I don't know. Again, as a practical kind of, as a coach, I struggle with that. That could mean nothing if, especially in experienced lifters, maybe if someone never's lifted before, sure, they have no awareness of their body and they need to just go through like the principles because they just know no better. But once you've kind of got an awareness of your body and kind of what muscles do, yeah, I struggle to think that could be like the wrong thing to ask.
Well, and it's funny because I do that a lot. I'm like, well, first of all, they're going, hey, Bret, is this good form? And I'm like, well, first of all, do you feel it in your glutes? And if they're like, no, not at all, I feel my hamstring right now. I'm like, yeah, well, okay, it makes sense because your feet were out. You're kind of pushing back. Like I can, you got to stay put. Your back doesn't slide. Your knees should be at a 90-degree angle. Let's try this. Let's go down a bit in weight. I want you to try it this way. And then they're going, oh my God, that's so much better. Like, come up higher. You weren't locking out. But if they're like, oh my God, my glutes are on fire, I have to stand up. Then I'm like, okay, we can tinker, but maybe that's the best way for you.
Yeah.
Like some of my girls like to have their knees at an slightly obtuse angle with hip thrusts. Some of my, you'd be amazed at how, and if you're just, I think most, here's the problem with social media. I've been talking about social media. You get rewarded. So it's this death to the practitioner, I call it. All the most popular, you name it, personal trainers or fitness experts, all the most popular, probably any field, right? Probably the most popular lawyer, chiropractor, all the people on the internet that have several million followers, they're not working with people anymore. They stop. My buddy, his roommate is the most popular chiropractor in the world on social media. And, he's great. He knows a ton. But I said, let me guess, he doesn't work with people anymore. He doesn't say that. I go, seriously, did he quit? He quit taking clients, right? Right, because he's smart, he's savvy, they want money. I don't blame him for that. Because the more time you have to collaborate with other people, the more time you have to make social media posts, the more popular you get. So why would they not? So until social media finds a way to reward people actually working in the field, it's going to be this way. And so then these guys are sitting around with nothing to do. Think about it. If you didn't train anyone, what would you do if you didn't train anyone at all? You sit around, what do? You you pontificate. And then you make up stupid things that aren't even tested. You don't even have a clientele to test them on. You'd be amazed at how many times I come up with an idea. And I just had this this prototype I made. Oh, it got delivered. I had my people make it. It got delivered. I was so excited. I've been excited about this for 6 weeks. I get it to my garage and I start doing it. I'm like, no, I can't. I hated it. And then I'm like, no, this can't be. And after, I would say 15 minutes, I go, I hate this thing. Like, it makes me angry. Let's put it in storage. Let's put it in storage. I wasted several $1,000s and 2 months of being excited. And it took me 15 minutes to realize this is a terrible, and it just goes into storage. And I have a whole storage full of metal scraps that are discarded items that never went to use. But I always have these ideas in my head, and then you test them and it's like, not that good. It doesn't work out in theory that well. Or you might have, you have 6 clients test it and you have 3 of them like, I really like it. And the other 3 are like, ooh, I actually don't like it. And here's why. That's why ideally you'd be a trainer, you'd have a large group of clientele and you'd test things out before you posted about them. But the fake trainers, they only train themselves. And, they're not working with lots of people. So they make these claims and they don't know the Dunning-Kruger effect. They don't know enough to know that what they said works well for 60% of people. The other 40%, it doesn't. But the problem is those black and white comments. Think about it. If I say squatting, the only way, if I made a comment on social media right now, the only way to squat is ass to grass. If you're not going ass to grass, you're just being a pussy or something. You know what I mean? You're a bro. You're training with your ego, and you're not. There are studies that show that going deep maximizes muscle growth. You want quad growth, you want glute growth, you want adductor growth, then you should go ass to grass. There's no other way around it. If you're not going ass to grass, then you care more about your ego than you do your physique, and you're training your ego. I mean, think about that. And then there's all these people who can't squat deep because their hip musculature or ankle mobility or something, or powerlifters who would be, I need specificity. I should go just below parallel, you know? It's so 40% of people are going to agree. The 40%ers who go ass to grass and squat deep is deep AF. So they're going to all share it, but this is going to be a volatile post. It's going to be pissing people off. All these people are going to be, so the 40%ers who go deep, they're like, yeah, I'm going to share this. I'm going to share this post. Then you don't follow me, but you see some of your friends share this and you're like, who's this guy? So you go on my page and you say something insulting, but that's how these black and white bold statements, they get rewarded. There's a lot of comments, a lot of engagement. And so that's what gets rewarded. So right now, Instagram is rewarding bold statements. They're not rewarding science.
Yeah.
They're not rewarding trainers with experience. The advantage if you want to be as popular as possible, do not train anyone in the field. Do not waste your time training because it's very time consuming. If I'm in the gym for 5 hours a day, those are 5 hours. I could have made a social media post during those 5 hours and you would grow faster. And until social media figures out a way, it didn't used to be like this. When you let humans decide, we cared. Remember when it was chronological order, there were no algorithms? Think about who was popular back then. It was the evidence-based crowd. We were very popular. It wasn't the charlatans. It wasn't the pseudo experts, Now that Facebook devised their little machine learning algorithms, the scientist is no longer appreciated. Brad Schoenfeld is not going to learn how to make reels.
Yeah.
Not going to make if he's trying to say, hey guys, new study published, he's going to screenshot the abstract. He's not going to have the robot voice, mention the abstract while he acts it out and puts a song in the back, a trending song in the background while he dances.
I've got an image in my head now. I can't get rid of it.
He's not going to be doing this dance to a song, to the robot voice reading out the abstract or something, or this study showed that blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just not going to happen. He's not going to make silly reels. So we need to, so they're not going to change. So I don't think this will ever, I don't know if it will ever change because people are too stupid. I remember reading this comment many years ago. I don't know who said it, but something effective, like the vast majority of the world is walking around umbilical cord in hand, looking for a place to plug in. It's like, that's what people do. They're just mindless drones that don't think for themselves and drooling. And I'm going to just plug in here and not do any critical thinking whatsoever.
Yeah.
But this is a dangerous path that we're on when we're rewarding the things that the algorithms are rewarding right now, aren't what's best for the world. And we don't know, like, have you noticed that your like social media has dropped in the last year?
It's I've certainly noticed it's so hard to get like in terms of, yeah, basically.
Yeah, same.
Definitely.
As it happened to everyone, some people are crushing it right now. I don't know what they're doing differently. I can mimic what they do and it doesn't. So as a businessman, I can't analyze what I'm doing wrong. Can you? And how sad is that? If I own a brick and mortar business, a gym, I can say, okay, we can look at these objective things and go, okay, this is down, this is down. Clearly we're doing this. We could do better at this. Well, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm making reels and some of them are getting 900,000 views and I'll get 100 followers that day. How can you get 100 followers when you had 900,000 views on your story? That doesn't add up. So this is what happens when you have monopolies. If you have monopolies and, Facebook buys out Instagram and we don't have they can just do whatever they want with the algorithms. They don't tell us what the algorithms are. We can't analyze our business. We can't, you know what I need? And that's what everyone, you talk to all these people, the lay public, and they go, I heard reels are real big. You need to be doing reels. Okay, I'm doing reels. I'm putting the trendy song in. I'm doing everything they told me to do. I'm getting huge levels of engagement. 350 to 900,000 views on these reels per day. And my following is stagnant. Something doesn't add up. So they're not telling us something, but we don't demand, the public has all the power. If we just collectively said, we're putting our foot down, we're not going to tolerate this anymore. We're not going to tolerate these algorithms because it's creating a more unscientific world. That's not good for the world. And it's also contributing to the things that bring the world down. It makes them depressed. The dysmorphia, the cancel culture, the drama, the conspiracy theories, the bullying, the harassment, the hate, you know what I mean? All that stuff is just, we want to get away from that. And let's, promote science. And I think science is at an all-time low in terms of public trust. And I was watching this documentary from several years ago on Bill Nye the Science Guy. I think it was 2017, and I think it was filmed in 2016. And here he is meeting with Neil Tyson deGrasse, and he's like, Neil, there's a problem. Like, people are starting to distrust science. They're starting to hate science and scientists. And that got worse during the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's like no one believes science anymore. They have this distrust. That's bad because you have people who don't. That's why that point of the exercise efficiency guide. I'm trying to teach people how to think for themselves because it's dangerous. It's a slippery slope. When you start having people who don't have a scientific mindset, they can be taken advantage of and controlled very easily,
It brings to mind like conspiracy theories and everything. So I guess we did see that, a lot of that. So it is a scary time, actually, especially, I guess, for us like I talk about us, people around our age, we kind of grew up seeing it as it started and we've grown up with it. Whereas some people are now like, anyone who's like 10 years old, what have you, like 10 to 20 years old now, they're kind of like being dropped in it. And it's kind of like, they haven't seen how it's changed over time. And yeah, Instagram is no longer how it used to be, for sure.
They don't know what things were like back before the algorithms. Why do we have algorithms? Why do we allow that? The algorithms are there to maximize profit.
Yeah.
It's like Facebook is a public traded company. It's their obligation to maximize profit for the shareholders. Well, there's a huge conflict of interest, because what's best for the shareholders is not what's best for you and I as businessmen. And it's not what's best for this teenage girl who's watching online, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And being, developing body dysmorphia and becoming depressed. That what's best for their profit is definitely not what's best for the public. And it's definitely, I think last year, Facebook, Instagram made like $120 billion, right? They can afford, it's like they had like $120 billion in earnings. They can afford to hire, they can afford more. And I remember back 2 years ago, remember the algorithms were good. We were all, remember, was that when you were doing your best like 2 years ago?
Probably that's when I started hitting like 50K, and then it like slowed right down.
Yeah. Times were great. We were all crushing it. They were still making a ton of profit. I think I remember reading they made 30 billion profit that year or something. They did fine. It's this never-ending greed. And I understand it. Like, hell, we all have our right to maximize our profit, but you can't become a monopoly. That's their fatal error. They became a monopoly. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to shadow ban you. I'm not even going to tell you what you did wrong, but you're shadow banned.
Yeah.
You won't even know that we won't even tell you that you're shadow banned. How is that even legal? Oh, now it's people get their accounts hacked. You can't get a hold of anyone. There's no customer service. You can't get a hold of someone. So your business is just on hold until you get a hold of someone. There's a serious hacking problem within Instagram right now. Bad.
Makes sense. Yeah. I can see
why. Why don't they have more customer service? Why don't they have more this? It's like they're above the law and everyone's afraid. It's so weird. Why are they afraid? I mean, there's this quote, was it Benjamin Franklin or something? It said like, God, I'm going to be butchering all these quotes left and right. But basically like when the government fears the people, then you have democracy, But when the people fear the government, you have tyranny. And it should not be that we're afraid to talk about this stuff. It's weird. It's like people think, oh my God, if I say something, they're worried it's going to affect their following. You can't be worried about that. They're not going to do that. If they do that, they will be caught. But we need to have two situations need to happen. Either needs to go back to chronological order, the way it used to be. That way, we choose what goes viral.
Sure.
It's not influenced by their algorithms their algorithms, they influence what goes viral. And their whole concern is how to keep you online for the longest, because then they can sell more ads. And what's so maddening about that is, do you remember watching the movie Social Network back in the day?
Yeah.
Where Mark Zuckerberg was like, we're bigger than ads. Now that's all they care about is ads. He went from like this young guy with his vision, and he completely did a 180, and no one talks about that. You once were against ads, and now you're obsessed with ads. There's no amount of money. You have this insatiable obsession with maximizing your profit to the point where it's harming people. Like, I don't understand how it wouldn't bother him that I have people that are like, Bret, I can't hack it anymore. I've got to go get a job. Like, I have to go back to teaching or something. I can't make a living anymore. I was doing great 2 years ago. I was really doing great. I was, supporting my family, and we were saving. And then now he doesn't care. He could care less that worldwide, millions of people have been affected by these algorithm changes. And now they can't make a living anymore. They're not making any money. any normal person, that would eat them alive. Like I couldn't sleep at night if that were me, you know?
Yeah.
But he does not care because he's been in it too long. All he cares about is maximizing profit. So a lot of the problems we're talking about, I know I just completely
180.
but it's tied to this podcast.
Yeah, it is.
Because those problems back in the day wouldn't have existed, you know, and you know, we had a more tight knit, we had, I can't explain it. We had more accountability back then, kind of back in the Facebook days.
Yeah.
We had a community and it was more like, but then they ruined, and it's funny. I've been working my butt off. Everyone said, how come you don't take vacations? You know what I would tell them the last 5 years? Because I was there. I worked my butt off on Facebook. I got 110,000 followers back when that was a big number. I had more followers than any other strength coach. And all of a sudden, overnight, it went to shit. It went to complete shit. And and I know, so I jumped ship. I stopped Facebook. I was the first strength coach to stop using Facebook. I just stopped. Not only did I stop using Facebook, I stopped blogging. I stopped my newsletter. I stopped Facebook. I stopped Twitter. I stopped YouTube. And I just put all my eggs in one basket, Instagram. And I started growing. And I didn't trust Instagram. It was just that my twin brother was like, Bret, trust me. Instagram's the wave of the future. I'm like, how? You can't even link things.
Yeah.
And he's like, just trust me on this. It's the wave of the future. So I was like, I got nothing else to lose. I went all in. I was killing it. And then all of a sudden I get the word out that Facebook bought Instagram. I went, no. They're going to ruin it, just like they did Facebook. And I told everyone, you know, Facebook was good for like 7 years or something, or 8 years, and then it sucked. So Instagram will be good for like 8 years, and then it's like a model they've developed.
Yeah.
And they do it slowly, and everyone's so dumb. They think they're doing something wrong. Admit it, Stephen, you're like, my reels suck. my infographics just suck now.
Infographics used to do well. Yeah,
right. You're like, my infographics, I just don't have anymore. Your infographics are fine. They change the rules on you and they don't tell you the rules. Like, wouldn't you feel obligated if you were the owner of the biggest social media company in the world? Wouldn't you feel obligated to say, hey guys, just a heads up, we're gonna be making some changes. We want to lead people to make videos. So, you know, the infographics aren't going to do as well anymore, or like, this isn't going to do as well. They don't even give you a heads up.
No. Now you have Instagram coaches. They've like, there's like a new niche of like Instagram coaches now. So they've developed some jobs somehow. Bret,
we don't have any clue what we're doing. Like, we don't have to, we can't analyze our business and go, here's what I need to do better, because we don't know what we're doing wrong. So it's a very frustrating situation. But because of these new changes, the stuff that used to get rewarded no longer gets rewarded. The stuff that's going viral and getting popular is this silly stuff.
Yeah.
And it's bad for our industry. It's bad for science.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the listeners will also agree. I think when you look at, like, people just don't see maybe your stuff, my stuff like they used to. And it's like the stuff that Instagram thinks you want to see because it's popular, and it's popular for poor reasons, not because it's good for you or good knowledge, or like, I mean, I guess people shouldn't really be going to Instagram for knowledge and education. Hopefully they're coming more to the podcast and like your blog articles and like your books and things like this. But unfortunately, a lot of people do. Right. And they take these sound bites and apply them, and maybe it's not the best place to be. But yeah, Bret, I want to say a massive thank you for you coming on. I know we could talk probably for ages, and I'm sure I have to have you back on before another 4 years. But your article, I think I can just link your website, right? So I can have that linked in the description box. That's where I found it before. So if people want to look over every point there, and I'm not surprised it took you a long time, because there's some things there that I hadn't even really completely thought about either. So it was really nice to see you kind of, I think it's probably nice for you to have conceptualized it and really had a thought out process. It's always nice doing those things.
I just like when because Brad always makes fun of me that I abandon science and full bro mode. He just jokes with me because he wants me publishing more, but He was impressed. He was like, wow, this is great. I'm given a topic I'm presenting on this topic and
Oh, awesome.
use this. And I just always want to be impressing Brad, you know?
I think everyone wants to impress Brad, or at least in the evidence-based like communities, like, yeah, one of the core there. So anyway, also just if people want to follow you on social media, make sure they are. Where should they head? Where are you putting information most?
So it's Instagram.com/Bret Contreras 1. If they don't remember, you can just type in the glute guy and I come up. But yeah, that's still Instagram is the main place, but I'm trying to blog again every once in a while.
Yeah.
I miss writing about more complex topics, you know?
And YouTube as well. That's where I found there was actually a really great analogy you had on like the carpenter and his toolkit in terms of like exercises for this, like when I was kind of doing some background. So people should head there as well.
YouTube, I've taken a little hiatus, but this last year I've made some really good videos in the last 12 months. So I really am proud of them. They're really high quality.
Yeah.
Teaching, you know, you learn a lot because I take my time embedding stuff into those videos that I think are important. So it's not so boring to watch.
Amazing. I'll make sure all of those are linked below so people can check them out. And again, thank you for coming on, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge. And I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.